one thing. Do you want to talk about how you got into rep and how, as a young actor,
Yes,
started?
well, yes, now this is the boring bit. And I will try not to bore you. I had this fascination for theatre. When I was 14, I went to Southport Repertory Theatre. And after the show, I stood outside the stage door and asked for autographs. And got the autographs, and the director, who was playing the leading part, as I've mentioned, happened in weekly rep, and Southport, seaside place, but it was a permanent rep, it wasn't a seasonal rep, it was a permanent rep. And so I knew he was the director and played the lead, so I said, any chance of having a look round the theatre? So he said, well, it's a matinee and we've got a bit of a break, so we're just going to go for a cup of tea. He said, we haven't time now, but one of the cast, it's his birthday tomorrow, so come and, we're having a bit of a party. So come at 9:30 and I'll introduce you to some of the other actors and show you around. So I did that. And it was an character actor called Vint Graves, the director who was playing the leading part. And I'm going to mention the names because they did some quite good work after, was Paul Dawkins. And so I went, chatted away with Vint Graves because it was his birthday and he was interested in somebody young being interested in the theatre and all that sort of thing, and had a great time. The cast were lovely. And very often in rep, which was the main body of my experience, but if you were in rep, some people stayed with 40 for 10 years. I think Arthur Lowe was with 40 for about 5 years, and Harry as well. People stayed in rep. You were earning money. You weren't, drinking in the Actors' Pub, the Salisbury in St Martin's Lane at lunchtime, or then going to the Kismet Club if you liked to drink, or the Arts Theatre. But you were earning money, and you were playing different parts. Tragic parts, having people in tears, you were expressing every emotion. The following week you were in farce, come on, and the following week you were coming on, opening the door, and you were saying, anybody for tennis? And it was this variety that was so fascinating in rep. Anyway, the following year, I take my exams at school, and I said to my family, I said, I'm going in for the theatre. So I wrote to Southport. And I wrote to the man it wasn't the same director, I wrote to the man whose birthday it was, Vint Graves. I said, can I join your company? The company, it was a new director, Donald Bodley. And he said, well, come along and I'll have a word with the director. I went along. Donald Bodley needed an assistant stage manager, which was how we learnt the trade. And I joined, and I was with Southport for some time, until such time, and loved it. They were a delightful company, and even in the very first week I got a nice small part. I think I've got it down here, but I won't talk about that. But it was good, great. But I felt after about 6-7 months, really, if you want to be serious about an acting career, you've got to go to drama school. Everybody goes to drama school. In actual fact, they didn't, but this is what I thought as a young man. And so I applied to go to the Central School. Some of you might have heard of that. And I got in. First term, very quickly run through this. First term was mainly voice and mime for the concentration. Second term was we did a Shakespeare play, Florizel. I was Florizel, and an actress called Mary Peach was my purgator. Does anybody know what Florizel, what is he in? The Shakespeare play. Sorry?
Winter's Tale.
The Winter's Tale, that's it, The Winter's Tale. Funnily enough, I couldn't remember the title, I don't remember my first. These your unusual weeds, to each part of you do give a life. No shepherdess, but floor appearing the Naples front. This your sheep shearing is as a petty meeting of the gods, and you the queen on't. Now, isn't that amazing? Couldn't remember the title, but could remember those lines, which I did in 1952. But there we are. And so, I enjoyed that. The following one was a restoration, which I didn't like at all. And I wasn't terribly all that happy in wearing leotards and dancing around. And I thought after 1 year, really, drama school is not for me. And also, I didn't get a scholarship there. My father went bankrupt anyway, so he couldn't afford to pay the fees. So it was back to rep. And let's have a look at the time. So back to rep, and near where I lived, just outside Manchester, there was a Repertory Company, and they were wanting people. Robert Marshall was the director and the management. He was the impresario. Him and his wife was the leading lady. And my first part was a part I loved, actually. It was played Michael in Love in Idleness by Terence Rattigan. And I enjoyed the company. I lived fairly near, so I could live at home, and was there for some time. After that, I went out on tour with a play called The 7-Year Itch, which I didn't appear on stage at all. You do it quite differently today, but Richard, he was the leading character, and he was quite a well-known person at the time that played the leading part. But his conscience speaks to him, and I was by a microphone with the script, didn't have to learn lines, and the script there, rather like playing lawyers. Lovely, lawyers, all your lines are there. What were you doing on Saturday? And anyway, so I did this tour, and a very pleasant tour. We opened at Cardiff, finished at Canterbury, I think. And then I had a little rest and went back to Buxton. And Buxton, this particular year, was not quite so happy. The Robert Marshall employed a married couple, and they poisoned, perhaps, I don't know, but they were not easy to work with, and that affected the whole company. But still, I had one or two people that I got on. We had a very good actress called Alison Bailey, who was a character actress, did a lot of broadcasting in Manchester, a lot of work in Manchester in the 50s, actually. And particularly with BBC Sound, Children's Sound. But anyway, any sort of anecdotes there? Not really. And after that, I went for Bob Marshall had another company at St Helens, Theatre Royal St Helens, and I joined that for a show called Reefer Girl. And the leading lady was a character lady, a big lady, charming person, but hadn't done quite a lot of telly and quite a lot of odds and sods in films. And so we started rehearsing on the Monday, Tuesday, learning a line, learning an act a day. Come Wednesday, you could see that this lady, and I'm not going to mention her name, she's not still with us, but she's in my mind, and I wouldn't on principle mention her name, but she was having difficulties. Thursdays, she broke down, and it was obvious she wasn't going to be able to cope. Now, she was the mother of a teenager who was a drug addict. I wasn't that. I had a girlfriend. We were sort of a secondary in the cast. And all the references to her were to Ma, and she had lines like, I brought you into this world and suckled you, and, you know, and all this. It's very sentimental. It wasn't, the Reefer Girl sounds pretty dire, and with a title like that, somebody did say, you should play it, Martin, but I did, and the people that came enjoyed it. It did well. But, so she was sent back to London, couldn't cope. And that happens in the theatre sometimes, and it happens in the West End, and this business about rep actors learning lines, and sometimes just cannot, you know, have difficulty. You can play a part 500 times, 1,000 times in the West End, and you can still try. Different reason, and the reason is your concentration goes because you played the part so many times. But that's another story. Anyhow, the leading lady, charming lady, the person who went back to London was the leading character, but the leading lady, her husband was going to join the company the following week, and Bob Marshall said if he could come down on Sunday, we could rehearse all day Sunday. If he could come down Saturday night, he was playing in Darlington, that's it. He was playing in Darlington, 4:40, and could he come down Saturday night? We rehearse all day Sunday, and we rehearse all day Monday. We went up on Monday night, and we did. And all the references to Ma, the words, I've suckled you and I brought you into this world, well, we had to cut that out. But went up, and this actor, 2 rehearsals, was word perfect, his timing was perfect, his business was perfect. He was brilliant, and a very nice guy as well.